Hi, everybody. Here we go into chapter 2 of the interpersonal class Self. Uh, the I am awesome hot dog. My favorite time to talk about self and everything else that goes along with self. And I know this is coming a little after you've gotten a chance to do the collages. And for those of you in the future, maybe it's before the collages. But I still think it's a good idea for us to go through this chapter together and get you a chance to look at some of the things dealing with self. So, moving right into it, comparisons. First of all, self to self. The biggest thing dealing with self to self is the idea of the self fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it's going to happen, then it most likely will happen. Mostly, this is a negative issue. It can be positive. If you tell yourself to do good things, you can do good things. But most of the time, people think of this negatively. If you tell yourself something negative, then what happens is you set yourself up, and the negative thing happens. If you think you're going to strike out, then you strike out. And that becomes an issue because you're not thinking positively and you're not putting yourself in positive situations. So you have an impact on yourself. The next impact on yourself is, we'll talk about these first, the types of self. You have the material self, so a total of all the tangible things you own, your possessions, your home, and your body. That would be the material self. The social self, the part of you that interacts with others, so that would be the one that you're actually around people with. And then the spiritual self consists of internal thoughts and introspection about your values, moral standards, and beliefs. You go back to the Maslow hierarchy, you know that the material self is sort of the bottom part of that pyramid. Social self is the middle, and the spiritual self is that top of that pyramid. So you see that sort of reflects on what the different types of self are. Going back to comparisons, yourself to your family. This is probably one of the highest impacts on yourself, what your family has given you or what your family has done with you. Helps us to define our personalities and beliefs about ourselves. But first, the idea of the identity scripts. As you're growing up, your parents will use terms, use comparisons, use other judgments to define you, to define who you are, your role in your family, your role in your life. They might call you smart. If they call you smart, then you tend to identify as a smart person. If they call you stupid, it's the same thing. The other side, you also feel like you're a stupid person as you're growing up. The other side of this, the other thing that this happens with this is the idea of attachment styles. These are parenting styles that tell us who we are, who others are, and how we approach relationships with others and ourselves as adults. How your parents treated you when you were a kid has an impact on your communication as an adult. What that does is it creates these 4 different attachment styles. So if you have a positive view of self and others, you tend to be secure. You had a consistent parents. They were always loving and caring for you, and that created a person who is caring about yourself and also caring about others. Fearful is the opposite of that. Your parents were not caring, abusive, negative behavior displayed all the time when you were growing up. You tend to have a negative communication style with others and a negative communication style with yourself. Dismissive. So this is when there's some disinterest, like maybe not necessarily as much abuse, but lots of disinterest as growing up. They still paid attention to you, but it was it was still some disinterested in what you were doing. Like they would always negatively say things towards you and say, oh, well, that's no good. You're no good at this, things like that. You tend to have a negative view of others as an adult and a positive view of yourself. And then the last one is preoccupied. Preoccupied people tend to have inconsistent with how they feel. They were inconsistently treated as a child. One minute, their parents were very loving, very caring. The next minute, they were disinterested. They weren't paying attention. They might have said negative things. So what this creates is a positive view of others because you still had some of that positivity, and then you also get a negative view of yourself. So you definitely see yourself as somebody maybe who doesn't set up or doesn't fit with other people's standards. So as you can see, oh shoot. No. Canceling these particular upgrade that they're trying to get me to do. Or not. There we go. Okay, moving on. I'm just going to continue the video. Comparison with your family. So self to family, this is what the grid looks like. So you see secure is up here at the top, positive, positive. So positive thoughts of self, positive thoughts of the other or partner. Dismissive would be the negative thoughts of the partner, positive view of self. Fearful would be the negative, negative, and then the preoccupied being the negative view of self, but positive view of others. So you see that there's a little bit what that grid actually looks like. So that leads us to the fact that attachment can actually change. Based on the different types of partners you may have, based on the relationships you develop as an adult, you can actually change what your attachment style is. It can actually happen, and there have been people who have gone from fearful to secure. It's a possibility. Does it happen a lot? No, it doesn't happen that often, but it can happen. It's based on the types of attachments that you create throughout your life. Friends and society, another major impact on ourselves. The idea of appraisal. So first of all, you have the idea of reflected appraisal. This is where when people come to us, they may judge us. They may say, oh, you're a smart person, or you're not a smart person. You're kind of, stupid. Or and I say that stupid and smart one because that's the easiest, I think, way to wrap your head around this idea. But you take that judgment to heart and you examine whether that judgment is true or not of you. That's the idea of the reflected appraisal. You appraise yourself based on what people say about you. You also have social comparison, comparing yourself to other people in your social network. So rating your own behavior as compared to the behavior of others. Do you do the things that other people do? Do you own the same clothes that other people have? Do you have the same shoes? Do you have the same cars? And you compare yourselves. It doesn't have to just be about material things. It can be about family. It can be about jobs. It can be about a lot of different things. So you compare yourselves to others to see where you fit in that particular society. Generalized other is something that's important. How society views us. We compare ourselves socially through relationships with other people and their cultural norms that are embedded in them, maybe passed on to us. So when we compare ourselves through those relationships with other people, their norms start to become our norms. We start to take on those types of things. But we also compare ourselves through the media, such as movies, television, magazines, and other media-related outlets. We take all of those things and we compare ourselves. We say, am I attractive? Or am I as attractive as this person in this magazine article or this magazine cover? Or am I as attractive as Brad Pitt? Or am I as attractive as Angelina Jolie? We take those things and we say, do I fit in that particular area? And that's where a lot of people tend to have problems with their self. The other is the particular other. These are the individuals who are the most important to us. These could be family members, they could be friends, but these are the people whose opinions we rely on the most. Usually it would be a best friend. It might be a significant other that you're with. It might be a family member. Somebody who you sort of rely on to give you advice, to give you help in certain situations. These are the people that you rely on. These are the people that you seek out to help you with those comparisons. Some social perspectives. First of all, we're not gonna go through all of these completely. We're not gonna go through a lot of the examples here. I'm just gonna quickly go through these. But culture has definitely changed, as you see. Our culture has definitely changed our views of things from the 1960s to today. How people viewed homosexuality in the 1960s has changed dramatically from then until now. Although we're kind of regressing back a little bit in our culture, and we're sort of taking a few steps back based on the current political climate about where we are. But there's still lots of advancement that's gone on from the 1960s to today. Race relations have changed a lot from the 1960s to today. The view of men and women has changed a lot from the 1960s to today. And that has a lot to do with your self-concept. If you are in any of those categories, that has a major impact on you. And how culture has affected you can be great. I mean, how culture, if you talk to a person who grew up in the 1960s who was gay and realized, oh, I'm in a terrible time in my life, like it hurt you, like you were hurting because society was telling you that you were hurting. And then you get to today and you get to a point where, gay marriage is legal. Things like that are happening. And you're like, your self-concept has improved dramatically thanks to a lot of the things going on in culture. So culture has a major influence on self. Other things to think about. Improving your self-concept. What to do. First of all, commit to change. Be open to change. Be open to any types of things that can help you improve yourself. Don't dismiss things that can come along. Gain knowledge. Know how you and others feel. Know about other people's perspectives of you. In order to change, you have to understand what you need to change. So knowing how others see you can help you do that. Set realistic and fair goals. Don't say you're going to change tomorrow. It doesn't work. So be realistic. Be fair to yourself and the types of change that you're trying to produce. Also create a context that supports that change. Get uppers. Get those people who are going to help you. I think the book actually calls them ego boosters. Ego boosters are fine. Same thing. It's an upper. It's a person who helps you feel good about yourself. It's funny because ego booster's sitting there on the page and I'm trying to go off of it. So there you go. Ditch those downers and vultures. Get rid of the people who are hurting you. Don't be around people who are make you feel bad about yourself. Should you have maybe somebody who challenges you? Sure. But not to the extreme of the point where they're putting you down or maybe even putting you down behind your back. These people, as I said, vultures, never stop. They make you feel bad about yourself in front of you, behind your back. And the book calls them ego busters. And they both fit that category. You don't want those in your life. And don't be a downer to yourself. Don't engage in self-sabotage. I told you in my collage that I tend to be the biggest downer on myself. Don't let yourself, don't put yourself down as much. And I know it's pot, kettle, black. But still, you shouldn't put yourself down so much. And I've gotten better at it over the years. I'm not as bad as I used to be. So take it from me that it is possible to try to get out of those situations where you put yourself down and having that negative self-image. And the collage assignment you've already looked at, you've taken care of, most of you. So I applaud you for that. Take care, and I'll see you for Chapter 3.